Hey everyone, Z-Slayer Dre here, and today join me as I swing to the Platinum Trophy in Spider-Man Miles Morales. In 2018, we were treated to the amazing Spider-Man developed by Insomniac that took a completely new spin on the web-slinger. Miles Morales is meant to be a bridge between the first and second games, so let's take a look to see if it lived up to the first game. The Platinum Trophy this time around is actually quite similar to Spider-Man 2018, with the one big difference being the requirement of playing through the game a second time in New Game Plus, which is something I'll definitely be talking about later in the video. For this game, I was actually debating on whether to do a video review, critique, or Journey to the Platinum Trophy video, but since my Journey to the Platinum Trophy series has elements of all three, I decided to go with that. That being said, this video will have more of a review and a critique than my other ones though, because of somewhat light trophy requirements. And before we get started, if you enjoy my content, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I'm having so much fun doing these videos, and subscribing really helps out the channel. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers by June, so thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed so far. With that said, let's kick things off with a review, and then I'll be going into the Platinum journey. We start off not too long after the events of the first game. After desperately waiting to get into the field, Miles is finally now swinging around New York City with Peter Parker. The police are transporting Rhino and the criminals that escaped jail back to the raft, and Miles is eager to help Peter make sure everything goes smoothly. Unfortunately, one of the cables holding up Rhino's cell snaps, and Miles rushes to fix the problem. Miles is still new to the field, and although it's not really his fault the cable snapped, he is unable to do anything to help, and the cell smashes to the ground, freeing Rhino and the criminals. This ends up being a great action set piece to start off the game, as you get to quickly fight the criminals, then ride on Rhino's back as he smashes through New York City. Rhino is able to easily defeat Peter, even though Peter has defeated Rhino multiple times before, including defeating him while fighting against Scorpion at the same time, but let's not get into that, knocking him out, leaving it up to Miles to put him down. Miles is able to overpower Rhino with his newly discovered bioelectricity powers, which will serve as a focus for the upcoming gameplay. After the fight, Peter informs Miles he is going to be away for a few weeks and is up to Miles to protect the city in his absence. Miles, while understandably nervous, swears he will do everything in his power to keep the people of New York City safe. And of course, everything goes wrong as soon as Peter leaves, as Miles gets caught up between two fighting factions, a evil energy corporation Roxxon, and the Underground, led by the mysterious villain, the Tinkerer. Due to the length of the main story, a lot of plot points are thrown at you at a breakneck speed, with the pacing feeling off. Characters are introduced quickly without being properly set up, making some of them feel very one-dimensional. You soon find out Miles' best friend Finn is the leader of the Underground, and much like Peter struggled trying to help Dr. Octavius, Miles struggles to help Finn turn away from the Underground and a life of crime. While there are some flaws with the main story, it's a mostly enjoyable experience with some great action set pieces. But the length is an issue, unfortunately, as the game clocks in at just under 3 hours. Now there is side content, but it's hard not to be disappointed at the length of the game, but I'll go over that more later in the review. Again, this time around, the voice acting is very good. I was not initially crazy about the voice acting for Miles Morales, but the actor did grow on me throughout the game. I actually think the issue was due to the pandemic. They probably did not have as much time as they normally would have had in the studio, because there was a few times that I think that lines really should have been redone. This of course is speculation, but instead of being able to do multiple takes, they probably only had one or two, meaning if something wasn't done perfectly the first time, they were probably stuck with a less than stellar line in the game. I'm not faulting them for that. Unfortunately, everyone has to work around the current state of things, and the gaming industry is no exception. As far as the rest of the cast goes, like in Spider-Man, the voice acting is well done across the board. I thought Ike Amandi had one of the best performances of the cast in his portrayal of Miles' Uncle Aaron, aka the Prowler. Miles' strained relationship with his uncle was one of the best parts of the story, as it really aided in fleshing out Miles as a character. I obviously don't want to spoil what little there is to spoil, but there's some great tense moments between the two. Finn is an interesting character, however, I wish we had been able to see more of her transformation into the Tinkerer. She kind of goes from just being a model citizen who happens to be Einstein-level genius, to being someone who is willing to kill people, including those close to her, just to get revenge. We do see some character developments through her, but it's mostly done through exposition instead of actually getting to see that slow, gradual change, which would have helped flesh out her character much better. However, it was intriguing to see the two friends diverge from each other and go in completely opposite directions when dealing with the death of a family member. Miles' determination to help people was strengthened, while Finn's personality completely changed, making her hell-bent on revenge, not caring how she got it and who she hurt along the way. The leader of Roxxon, Simon Krieger, was unfortunately a villain of the twirling their mustache variety, so Sadly, there really wasn't any depth with his character. I'm sure there could have been a more substantial backstory for him if the game was longer, but sadly we just got a one-dimensional sociopath. We have all the elements of a great story, and like I said, it was an enjoyable experience. But again, the length of the game was so short, interesting character development went unexplored or was told to us through exposition. Gameplay-wise, it's virtually identical to Spider-Man with the addition of Miles' extra powers, and I'm actually conflicted with how I feel about them. From a gameplay standpoint, it's actually a great addition and gives us as players more options for combat, but when it comes to character development, I think it's a bit over the top with the amount of powers he has. I know the creators wanted to find a way to distinguish him from Peter Parker, but I think they went over the top, although I'm sure most people don't care either way. Okay, back to gameplay. So, Miles has the additional powers of being able to generate a bioelectric charge that he can use in a variety of ways, along with being able to turn invisible. The electric punches are dubbed Venom Punches, and damn, they are so satisfying to pull off. They feel impactful and send your enemies flying. There's actually a good variety of new combos to use with the Venom Punches, along with electricity being used for some light puzzles throughout the game. The invisibility was where I felt it went a little overboard. While you can only stay in stealth for a limited amount of time, if you get into a pinch, you can turn invisible, zip up onto a wall, and enemies will lose track of you, re-enabling stealth takedowns. This is interesting in the sense that you basically get a mulligan if you mess up and get caught during a stealth takedown, but I ended up not using it that much. With the Venom powers and gadgets, I felt like I had more than enough at my disposal and ended up forgetting about it at times. Outside of the main story, there's also similar side content to Spider-Man 2018 that of course is required for the Platinum Trophy. There's 9 Spider-Man challenges left behind by Peter to help train Miles in his absence. Completing these gives Miles new abilities, most of which are carryovers from Peter's skill tree in the previous games, so even if you're not going for the Platinum Trophy, they are definitely worth doing. I actually enjoyed them more this time around. I feel like the developers tried a few different things, and they actually really worked. The combat challenges in particular have changed. For example, in the first one you have to defeat enemies in the time limit only using your web throwing abilities, which was an interesting change-up. Other than that, we saw the return of hideouts, collectibles, and side missions. The side missions are now through an app that contains both short missions and crimes. Outside of the first side mission, they are actually quite short this time around, but most have a small side plot connecting them. It was blatantly obvious who the villain was pulling the strings behind the scenes, but at least there was something holding them together outside of go to place and beat up thugs. And again, I find myself wishing there were more boss fights. There are 6 total, and 2 of them are basically reskins from Spider-Man 2018. Again, my main critique is that they are really fun, and I just want more of them. Beating up generic thugs and swinging around the city is good fun, but fighting against villains should always be a main focus of any superhero game. Okay, let's go over the platinum requirements. Since I've platinumed both Spider-Man PS4 and PS5, this one felt pretty standard this time around. Basically, beat the story, collect all of the collectibles, do all the hideouts, complete all side missions, purchase all skills and suits, and then finally beat the game a second time on New Game Plus. Like in Spider-Man before it, most of the collectibles have a story behind them that helps flesh out the world and the characters. My personal favorite was collecting the 10 sound samples. Before Miles' father died, he had a falling out with his brother, Miles' uncle Aaron. Through gathering the sound samples, Miles learns of how they fell out and about his uncle's regret over the situation. As I said earlier, I thought their complicated relationship was well done, and I was grateful to see more content to flesh out that relationship even further. The time capsules tried to do the same thing, teaching us about Miles and Finn's relationship before they became enemies. These were reminiscent of the backpacks in Spider-Man 2018, and didn't really help flesh out the characters as well, but there was so little to go off from the story, it was nice at least to have something. Personally, I think while telling a story and fleshing out characters through collectibles can be effective, when your story is so short that you almost have to rely on them, it feels like the majority of a character's relationship with another is being told almost purely through exposition, which is rarely a good thing. There's a few random challenges also, mostly kill enemies 50 times this way or that way. The one surprising one was finishing a base undetected. Yep, this time around you can completely finish bases through stealth, and even when additional waves come in, you're not auto-forced out of stealth. This was a great change and one of the few consistent criticisms of the original game that I've seen, so it's great that Insomniac is listening to the player feedback, even if it's in a small way. Some skills and suits can only be purchased in New Game Plus, which, while I'm not crazy about locking some skills behind it, it is nice to have some extra things to unlock in that game mode. For some reason, they made it so you cannot skip most of the cutscenes in New Game Plus. I actually beat the story and did New Game Plus in the same day, so it felt a bit repetitive to watch all of the same cutscenes again in the same day. My plan of attack was to do all the side content first, then do the main story. I'd actually recommend doing it the other way around, so you have a buffer between doing the story a second time. All in all, it took me just under 10 hours of platinum, and I was really shocked it took such little time, considering the game cost $50 for the PlayStation 5 version. Overall, there's a lot of fun to be had in Miles Morales, but it's over in the blink of an eye. I am absolutely fine with shorter games, but they need to be appropriately priced. When you price your DLC at nearly the same price of a full game, I expect nearly the same amount of content as a full price game. If it wasn't for the New Game Plus requirement, I would have 100%ed the game in less than 7 hours, and the majority of that 7 hours was spent doing side content. And don't get me wrong, the side content is also fun to complete, but when it's the bulk of a game, that's a serious problem. All in all, this nearly full-priced game is a little shorter than the DLC from Spider-Man 2018, which itself felt extremely short for $20. So I'm going to give Spider-Man Miles Morales a gold trophy. Despite the pricing issues, it was a very fun game. However, I really didn't like that they had to make us do 2 playthroughs in New Game Plus, where you couldn't skip all of the cutscenes to drag it out. This felt almost desperate to drag out the runtime of the game, since they knew quite a few people would be going for the platinum like in the original one. If you are interested in playing the game, and I actually would recommend it, I would say wait for an extremely steep sale. It's bad enough that you're forced to pay anything for Spider-Man Remastered, but requiring people to buy an overpriced DLC for the privilege is extremely anti-consumer. I would say wait till the bundle is $20 or less, despite it being a mostly good experience. I am a bit nervous now of the franchise's future. While Insomniac has proven they can put out great games, if Sony continues to be anti-consumer, it will really hurt the quality of the series. Granted, it's Spider-Man, so it will sell regardless, and I'm sure Sony is banking on that. Anyways, if you've platinumed Miles Morales, let me know down in the comments if you thought it was better than Spider-Man 2018 Platinum. I have my gigantic PlayStation 5 review coming up soon, so make sure you're subscribed to see that as soon as it comes out. I really wanted to make sure I had plenty of time with the system to make sure I could properly critique it, and I've been testing a ton of games, which is obviously rather time consuming, but it will make for a better review. Thanks so much for watching, make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.